Hello and welcome to Hockey Hypothetical, serious answers to silly questions. Each episode we will be taking preposterous scenarios that we've made up from the world of hockey and trying to produce genuine responses to the what-if questions. My name is Jonathan Fernley, I'm here with Stephen Dowson, and Douse, here's our first Hockey Hypothetical. Let's move ice hockey to the summer. Let's make it a summer sport. Will it work?
It's not the worst idea in the world, is it? I mean,
is it not?
I would say, okay, I would say that hockey's biggest rival in this country is football. And I'm only saying that because of the style of play is so reminiscent to football. The fast pace, the goals, the type of atmosphere that you get at the crowd and the stadium. Our biggest direct competitor has to be football. So why on earth would you have a league that goes in direct competition with, at the very least, 5 other leagues that get thousands of people to their games every week? Much better to be a sport that is competing with the likes of cricket over the summer than competing with football. Now, there are some obvious downsides to hockey as a summer sport. A, it's warmer, and will people want to be inside on warm, sunny days? But you know what? I think they would, because sometimes you just want to get away from all the oppressive heat we get here in the UK. And crucially, it works in Anaheim. It works in Miami. Hockey even works down in the Arab Emirates. I think it's an untapped resource to make it a summer sport because you start appealing to a completely different demographic of fans.
A couple of things then that come from the points you've made already. Does a game facing off at 7 o'clock compete with football starting at Saturday at 3?
Not directly, but financially it really does. It really does financially compete with a game starting on the same day later on in the day. And, for the most part, elite league franchises are in football towns. And they'll tell you that if the local teams do well, they see it. They see it because people go, oh, you know what, we'll spend an extra 15 quid and go watch the hockey later on tonight. But if the team isn't doing too well, it kind of has that knock-on effect to everybody, around the stadium. You can just feel it, and I don't think you should try and compete with somebody in terms of financially at the same time in the year when you have a summer where you don't have that same level of competition.
So the major sports then that you'll be clashing with in the summer, you've mentioned cricket.
Yep.
Also rugby league, that made the move to be a summer sport. No one's ever suggesting that they go back to the winter and compete with rugby union and football. There aren't many hockey markets that are going to clash with rugby league. Hull is one. Manchester is another. Basically, they're the only teams on the M62 at the moment. Yep. I don't really think there's massive crossover between the Sheffield Eagles fan base and the Sheffield Steelers fan base at the moment.
Yeah.
There may be the odd few, of course, but the Eagles are not getting massive crowds, and it's certainly not a Super League team. So there shouldn't be as much direct summer competition. There is Speedway, but again, Speedway crowds are not on the level of ice hockey crowds, so you'd feel that ice hockey would possibly win out if that was a head-to-head decision that people had to make. Regarding the temperature, and regarding, it's a nice hot sunny day, do we really want to be indoors?
Yes.
Absolutely guarantee every year the Steelers will sell out at Ice Sheffield in their first pre-season games. It's the middle of August. We've, on back-to-back years, had a glorious sunny day for that first Saturday home pre-season game.
Yep.
Everyone wants to be inside watching ice hockey. We're desperate to watch it.
How great is it to go see a hockey game in shorts?
Yeah, it's not a problem. And also, let's remember, hockey's probably still going to be happening in the evening. Most of the day has been done. You can enjoy the hot summer day outside, have a barbecue, have a great day, then go to the hockey in the evening to cool off.
And here's where I think the biggest advantage for hockey becoming a summer sport would be is in the sports journalists who have nothing to write about over the summer. You know, who you try getting a look in on a Saturday evening of the fixtures. It's just not going to happen, no matter what happens spectacularly. And we've even covered this in a hypothetical. You know, what is a hockey game got to do to get to the back pages of the sports of a newspaper? It ain't going to happen, because Man City will have played that day. Man United will have played that day. One of the other great teams, Newcastle United, would have played that day. It will be dominating that, you know, that part of the program of the paper. Why are we trying to compete? We're never going to get that level of exposure on the BBC Sport website. Much better to put ourselves in a position where sports writers have less to write about, so they're more likely to come to games. I mean, at the moment, we've got, you know, for most of the Elite League, you've got sports writers going from football, then going over to the ice hockey. You know, they're firing out 2 reports on one day. They're not going to be able to promote them at the same level and at the same quality.
The current Elite League season runs for 7 months.
Yes.
So if we're going to be a summer sport, it's going to extend into everybody else's hockey season. At the moment, our season starts September, pre-season in August. Well, that's a little bit earlier than North America, but that's not ridiculous. And it finishes in April, when most of the other European leagues finish. How are we going to be able to recruit the best players if they're still with their current teams until April, and our season's been running for 2 months at that point? A player's not going to be leaving before the playoffs to go back to their other teams.
Possibly, but I think also what you get is a different type of player. You know, you get the players who are looking... I mean, at the moment, we're trying to get the best of what's available. But over the summer, or just before the summer, you might get a load of players who have been moved around, who just haven't made it work for them that season, and are now going, how am I going to get a job next season when this season's numbers have been terrible? I know. I'll go play a summer in the UK, get my numbers back to where I think they can be, and then get back into that employment I want to be back in the other leagues in North America. I think it's the biggest drawback, obviously, of making it a summer sport, is that we'd be completely out of kilter with the rest of our brother and sister leagues across the world. But we wouldn't be out of kilter with Australia, who've made it a summer sport.
It's a winter sport for them.
Well, yes, but in terms of the
yeah, of course.
In terms of like North American, you know, it's a summer timed sport for the Western world. So and they do make it all right. It could be a lot better, as we all know, but they do make it. But crucially, I think the potential media exposure you could get from being a summer sport, I think it's just better. I think it just tells better stories. And look at it from another commercial point of view. At the moment, every club would love fans to arrive early, spend loads of money on merchandise, you know. Because that's where the money is, isn't it? You know, it's all the extra pounds and pennies that you pick up around the arena, not necessarily the people who come into it. Well, you could have outdoor fan-based barbecues before every game. You could have, you know, that fantastic culture that they have in America of, you know, of people driving up in their cars and eating food, and you can make a lot of money serving food and selling food outside the arena, creating a real party atmosphere like they do in some of the more warmer NHL climates, you know?
Is there a possibility then of having more midweek games because it's the school holidays? Exactly. Can we have a slightly amended fixture list? A Friday night's less of a problem in the summer.
Let's flip it round
midweek
a bit.
Nights certainly less of a problem when the kids aren't at school the following day.
Our league currently goes on for 7 months. Couldn't it go on for 5? You know? And maybe make it a 3 game a week season. Now, that would be very hard on the players, and you'd have to do lots of things to make sure it would all work.
The NHL players play 3 games a week. That's not a problem. Exactly.
You make it a 3 game a week league, you can suddenly do the whole league within 5 months. You solve the player recruitment problem at the very least. And also, crucially, there's always something happening. There's always something to report. And if you're looking from a TV deal point of view, there's always something to show.
So if we had a season that started in April and finished at the end of September,
yeah,
then players would be able to then go and join up with other European or North American teams at the start of their season in October.
Exactly.
And they're already going to be match fit.
I mean, let's look at the example that we've currently got in the Elite League. Free Sports carries one game, is it every 2 weeks?
At the moment, yes.
And they've moved it to a Wednesday night. And it's a smart thing for them to do, because they know putting the Elite League on a Saturday night, there's no point. Don't compete. You can't compete on a Saturday evening, you can't compete on a Sunday evening. Don't try. Give it a new time slot. And so they've moved those games to Wednesday nights. You know, if you've got a TV game, you've got to play on a Wednesday night. That is them accepting the fact that we shouldn't try and compete with the biggest sport in the country. Okay, Jonathan, it is my hypothetical. You get a lot of myths in sport. You get a lot of people who listen to these myths to the point where they believe it's true. Come on, then. I'm allowing you to get rid of one myth that sticks to this sport, that you can burn into the fires of hell, that you can put into room 101. What's the one myth you put in room 101?
Right, I know why you've picked this one, because you've heard me rant about this before. In fact, I even did it on the Steelers webcast earlier in the season. It's the whole idea of momentum, particularly based around teddy bear tossers. Because the theory goes that, teddy bear toss, you've just scored, you've got the momentum, and yet you have to stop for 5 minutes and clear up all the teddy bears, and you lose all the momentum. Well, that would mean that scoring just before the end of the period is really no good at all, because you lose all the momentum. When actually, everyone would say that's a great time to score, because the opposition doesn't have time to catch you cold on a reply. No one ever says, after teams taking a time-out, they've pulled the netminder, we'll take a time-out and discuss what we're going to do with this final 60 seconds. No, don't do that, you're killing all the momentum. No, not at all. Everyone wants you to take the time out and properly plan and prepare for it. You're less likely to get caught cold after a teddy bear toss because you've had a few minutes to get yourself sorted and get your coach to remind you of what the situation is. I think that's much more likely. It just seems that way.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we were watching a game, I think you were calling a game the other week, in which the team was 2-0 up just before the end of the first period. But just before the end, the away team gets a goal 30 seconds before the end of the first. And everybody was like, "Oh, that's a huge goal for them. Huge goal to take in the locker room, That'll give them something to talk about, give them lots of momentum." Not a single person went, "Oh, what a terrible time to score for the away team." Not a single person went, "Oh, well, they would have hoped to have done that at the beginning of the second."
Yeah, absolutely, because there's absolutely no danger of your team conceding again immediately afterwards to make it 2-2. Whereas at the start of the second period, you've got your plan for how you're going to play with a 2-0 lead, and suddenly, it's 2-1. Right, okay, scratch that plan. And while you work out how you're going to rearrange yourself, it's 2-2. Now, it works both ways. There are times when teams do go on and score, and there are times when teams don't. The whole myth of momentum is literally that. It is a myth because it changes all the time. How on earth are goals ever scored against the run of play? We had the momentum, we were dominating the zone time, and then suddenly you pinch the puck, play one long pass down the ice, and you're in on the breakaway and you've scored. Hang on. But we had the momentum, how could we possibly have conceded at the other end? Yeah, momentum changes all the time, and it's not got anything to do with a timeout or a teddy bear toss or an injury. It changes for all sorts of reasons. A bad pass, a bad bounce, a refereeing decision. And just because it's changed one way doesn't mean it's not going to change back for 5 minutes. It might change back in 5 seconds. Momentum is a ridiculous concept.
Are you a believer in momentum in general?
Yes, but I'm also a believer that it can change at any moment. And that it's not a long-lasting thing.
It's not a permanent effect.
There is a feeling of momentum that you can get when your team is on top, particularly in a home game, and the crowd's really into it, and you're roaring them on, and you've had a couple of chances, and the keeper's made a save, and you just feel like a goal is coming. Sometimes it does. And then sometimes momentum switches because the puck starts going the other way. And you feel you're on the back foot and you're penned in. but it changes all the time.